Welcome back to the Morning Grind. It's Dean once again. Stevie not in just yet. Of course, Stevie's knocking out his NASCAR content. You guys know where to get that here at RotoGrinders.com. That said, we got basketball and baseball theoretically right around the corner. Yesterday we talked with Cardi about baseball. Mostly just anticipating the season, some things to kind of expect. We talked a little bit of Vegas stuff as well. I wanted to have a bigger Vegas conversation. With that, I'm going to bring in Mr. Vegas. Sure, why not? Let's give him that moniker. I mean, nothing says Vegas like that haircut you're rocking right now, Grant. It's Grant Neiffer. What's going on, Grant?
Oh, just getting my quarantine haircuts going, for my doctor.
Is that a combination platter? Like you get like a checkup and you get a haircut at the same time?
Yeah, here's a haircut and here's some penicillin. You shouldn't have had so much fun this weekend.
I have questions, but I think the people want to hear us talk about some basketball. We're gonna do basketball and we're gonna do baseball as well. Talking from a Vegas perspective, right now I have the DK Sportsbook open. Grant, right? We're going to basically work off that. We did want to say, actually, I talked to you about this off air. I think it's worth noting before we kind of dive in. More and more states, obviously, are ratifying Sportsbook. More and more states are trying to get you to sign up, and they're giving you sign-up bonuses, and they're giving you some free bets. And you talked to me about this off air, and unfortunately, right now, I'm in a state that does not offer sports gambling, but you do. You happen to live in Colorado right now. Speak to that and speak to the strategy on how to best use your deposit bonuses or I guess your free bets specifically.
I mean, yeah, so always get the maximum deposit bonus if you have the money for it. Again, be responsible, but always get the maximum deposit bonus every single time. Like DK, FanDuel, MGM Bet, all these places, they offer you a $500 free bet. So on your first bet up to $500. So as much as you're comfortable with losing, use that. And then on DK, the free bets they give you, you don't get the equity back. So you put $500 on a plus 100 bet. And if you win, you get $500. Whereas if you put $500 on a minus $500 bet, you get back 100. So you don't get back the equity like you would with a normal bet. So if you're going to use these free bets, always go with a dog. Always go with the dog, preferably a bigger dog if you can. I use a bet earlier yesterday on the Pelicans to win the finals because it wasn't a great bet. I'm not proud of it. I had a few drinks beforehand.
The NBA finals?
Well, I had to use a $25 bet free bet on NBA, and so I'm like, all right, I'm just gonna go for a long shot. I'm like, oh, this seems like a good idea. I'm probably gonna forget to use this bet if I don't do it right now, anyways. But yeah, always opt into all the promotions. I've got Tiger Woods to make the cut at plus 125 this weekend. I had enhanced bets. Use all of those ones you can because it's basically free money right now.
How many different sites did you sign up for? How many were you enticed by to get your free perks?
I mean, I was waiting more towards baseball season, and so now I'm probably gonna be signed up for 6 of them. Would be my guess.
Yeah. I saw FanDuel. This was for Colorado specific, and it kind of makes sense because it was for week 1 of the NFL season, where I believe they're giving you can back the Broncos up to $50, and I want to say they give you 30 points. Do you trust the Broncos to cover here?
Yeah, I trust the Broncos to cover there. I mean, it's not a guarantee, but most likely going to happen. They've given out tons of them. I'm just looking at mine right now. I have the Avalanche to win the championship at 30-1.
Okay.
So, I mean, it's not a ton of money, but these things start to add up. They really start to add up. So, yeah, I mean, just make sure you use them. Free money is free money.
It's interesting you mentioned the Pelicans first because that's kind of where I want to start. This is my favorite bet, Grant, and I want to pitch it to you. I want you to confirm. I want you to deny. Tell me I'm wrong. I may try to find somebody to wager this for me because, again, currently I'm not in the state to do so. Of course, I'm just in an advisor role. But the Pelicans right now, Grant, they are currently plus 300 to make the playoffs. Well, to get the 8 seed. And that's basically if they're going to make the playoffs, they're going to get the 8 seed. And the Pelicans are basically battling for the 8 seed with Memphis, with Portland. I guess you can say Sacramento. I guess you can say San Antonio and Phoenix and Dallas. Dallas isn't going to fall all the way back. That doesn't make any sense. They're, I think, 500-1 or 50-1 because they're going to get the 7 seed. But, Grant, we currently have Memphis in a good spot, well-positioned to at least be in that play-in game. Now, you know how this works, Grant, I assume. If the 8 seed has a lead of 4 games or more over the 9 seed, they're just the 8th seed in the playoffs start. If it's 4 games or less, they're going to have a play-in game. 8 plays 9. If 8 beats 9, 8 moves on. If 9 beats 8, they play again. If 9 beats 8, it's 9. So what I'm playing on, what I think is going to happen here, of course, Portland's in between as well, too. It's Memphis, Portland, New Orleans. Portland and New Orleans are kind of sort of neck and neck. But the NBA, stop me, chime in here at some point here, Grant, but the NBA wants New Orleans to make this playoffs, right? They want to showcase some Zion.
Yeah, oh, absolutely. They want that to happen. And I'm trying to place a bet right now on this. Guess I'll have to save it for later because apparently I can't do it while I'm on Zoom on my computer. Didn't know. I've only ever used the app until now.
That seems weird.
But yeah, and I mean, like, I think it was Ian Hardwood, whatever his name is. I can never remember people's names because I'm not good at that. So they're 3 games out. Like, I think that if they're within 4 games by the end of it, they have to win twice essentially against the Grizzlies in a row in order to make it. You sent me over something earlier, like 538 or whatever it is, has them as a 38% chance to make the 9 seed or 8 seed.
They have a 45% chance, according to 538, math-based organization. 45% chance for New Orleans get the 8th spot, 37% chance on Memphis, 10% chance for Portland, despite the fact Portland has a slightly more favorable record right now against New Orleans. Portland is 29-37. New Orleans is 28-36. But the other part is New Orleans, in their real schedule, the one that was thrown away, obviously, because of COVID, they had the most favorable schedule going down the stretch. And I suppose kind of sort of for that reason, that's why New Orleans ended up with the absolute best strength of schedule going forward in these 8 games. Yeah, they faced the Clippers. Yeah, they faced Utah on opening night, which, by the way, opening night, they're being showcased on ESPN, I believe. But they're also facing all the other terrible teams. I think they got Sacramento twice. They got Washington as well. I think they played Phoenix too.
Washington's going to be is pretty much a guaranteed win for everyone.
I'm going to try out for Washington. I'm going to give it a go. I think they're going to give me like 10 minutes or so. It's not going to go well. But, yeah, Washington, of course, without –
I think you can hold your own in IT2's place.
It's not going to go well. But if you want to play conspiracy theory, that it's kind of sort of like the schedule was suggesting New Orleans, should have an easy schedule going forward as well, too. They're also healthy now, too. And, they're a good team. I think they're the best team of this bunch as well also.
Easily.
It's going to come down to – I think it's going to come down to them playing Memphis twice. And they beat Memphis twice this year already, for what it's worth. And I think they're favored in both those games. Like, of course, Memphis only has won 1 of 2. But, again, you're getting 3-1 on this, Grant. Give me 3-1.
Yeah, I'll take it. I mean, if you were saying, like, 3-1's not bad. If the Pelicans are actually the better team, if this were just a straight-up parlay of them beating the Grizzlies twice, I think it would come out to – at minus 110, it would come out to like a plus 300 or payout anyways, them beating the Grizzlies twice in a row. But, like, they're just straight up the better team. And, I mean, I get that the Grizzlies are a bit more healthy now. I know Triple J was out, and then Dylan Brooks was on a real whatever the opposite of the heater is. But, I mean, in my opinion, yeah, the Pelicans are just the much, much better team right now. So, plus 300, I'm right there with you. I think that's probably the best futures bet for at least the 8th seed. And then, like, just looking at other futures bets for the championship winner, I'm not seeing a ton, but I think my favorite one right now is probably the Clippers at plus 333. I mean, the Clippers just match up well against most teams. Like, Paul George and Kawhi, like, they're going to be rested, which is obviously the biggest problem for them. When they're rested, I mean, the Clippers were already an 8th seed last year prior to – or were they were like a 6th seed, something like that last year with just their second unit. And now their starting unit is probably the best in basketball, better than the Lakers even. And if Paul George and Kawhi actually stayed in shape during this time, which I would assume they would, because PG's pretty much like half rested the entire season, and they'll have 8 games to get into shape. Like, being able to have PG and Kawhi out on the floor for a boatload of minutes every single game during the playoffs is going to be massive. I think the Clippers are probably my favorite at plus 333. But, I mean, if you want to go a little bit ballsy, Philly at plus 2,800 is not the worst idea in the world.
Yeah, I just want to walk us back just for a second. Just kind of, Portland, it's worth noting, I suppose. Zach Collins and Nurkic are expected to be back for them. So adding some depth there down low. I saw a picture of Carmelo. He looks like pretty svelte. I don't know if you saw Carmelo. He's kind of skinny. coming out of the COVID break for what it's worth. But I'm still not afraid. I still like that 3-1 as far as New Orleans. And one more thing I wanted to say about that is that the best strength of schedule went to New Orleans. I think it was 4th and 5th for Memphis as Portland as far as the worst when it comes to strength of schedule. Of course, this was like a week ago or so before like new news is broken, and then I've not seen, of course, Westbrook with COVID. We're not really sure what's going to happen with him. Right before we started recording, there's news about speculation with Harden, and it's not a great source. I don't want to put it out there necessarily, but it's worth noting, and maybe by tomorrow this will have gone away, or maybe by tomorrow it'll be common news, and like Shams will have reported that Harden has COVID as well. But who knows? Keep an eye on all that kind of stuff. And, yeah, as far as the Clippers, and, look, we always say as a basketball, right, Grant? It's not like baseball. It's not like hockey. You just get in the playoffs and you get hot and anybody can win. Basketball, the best teams are going to win a massive percentage of the time in a 7-game series. But this is the time to embrace chaos. I know you started with the Clippers, and the Clippers, for some reason, I feel like that line should be closer to the Lakers. I just don't agree that it's that much of a disparity. And as far as
the reason behind that is people automatically bet on LeBron. It's not about what the actual odds are that much. It's more about like what people like want to do. There's a reason why the Patriots are always probably bigger favorites than they should be, even though they've covered a dramatic amount over the last 7 years. There's a reason the Packers always have probably an extra 1 point add to their line because people want to bet on the Packers, people want to bet on the Cowboys. So certain teams just have an automatic tendency to have higher odds because more people are Lakers fans than anything else. So you have all the people putting in their $20, $30 bets on the Lakers to win the playoffs. So I think
what about the Whales, though? What are the Whales doing?
I mean, the Whales have there's a reason why it's not all the way over there. But like just such a drastic amount of bets, bookmakers know that they're going to be betting on the teams that are the most well-known, and the Lakers are the most well-known.
Lakers plus 240, Clippers plus 333. And like I agree with you, just from a numbers perspective, I feel like that's basically a toss-up. You can make the depth argument, and again, we don't know what these teams are going to look like in 2 months and change. Who is in, who is out. For what it's worth, Rondo's out 6 to 8 weeks. Bradley's already out for the Lakers. They did have J.R. Smith.
I think they got Dion Waiters, didn't they?
Do they have? Did I miss Dion Waiters? Did they have both?
I think that might have been a while ago. I can't. I looked it up earlier. Like it's been so long since I've seen any basketball. Wow, I'm like looking through the roster. I'm like, Dion Waiters is on there.
Yes, that is correct. Dion Waiters and J.R. Smith. What can go wrong? That's going to be. I'm sure LeBron's going to have a great time there. And just look the depth, just like betting on depth, like you said, the Clippers are a really, really deep team. They can go 8 or 9 deep, even 10 deep if they need to. Of course, the playoffs, you only play so many guys. Your starters basically play a bulk of minutes. But, if Davis goes down, I don't want it to happen. But if it does, if Davis is out for whatever reason, if LeBron's out for whatever reason, the Lakers are going to be in pretty severe trouble. Like, I don't want to bet against LeBron either. But at some point, it's like, well, who's his second best player on the team besides Davis? It's a lot of role players and not a lot of guys that can basically do things on their own. And then, LeBron's going to be basically like he was with the Cavs a few years ago. So the losing teams when, Love and Kyrie were out and they lost like 4-2 or something like that. But you want to expand as far as the Clippers? I know you kind of mentioned Philadelphia as well as kind of one of your darts. And is that sort of embracing chaos or maybe just betting on Philadelphia, like getting it right and figuring it out? Because this is a team coming into the year that was one of the favorites there in the East. And, they've disappointed. Let's say that. In the East, I think they're a 6 seed right now. Doesn't really matter. Just get to the playoffs and then figure it out and kind of peak then. And as far as just talent, not many more teams, especially in the East, have as much talent as Philadelphia.
Yeah, and they have some depth. One of the biggest things that we have to consider with this NBA format is some people are going to get corona and some people are going to get it beforehand, like Westbrook got news of today. And we don't know what the lasting effects are. Like with COVID, you can easily have respiratory problems for lingering for weeks in basketball. Like baseball, it's not going to affect you a ton. You'll be a little bit weaker. But basketball, when you're running up and down the court and playing 35 minutes a game, a team like Toronto, if any of their main players end up getting it, and that's going to probably take a huge hit for them. So just kind of looking at the teams with a little bit more depth, with a little bit more options, like the 76ers have guys that can take over different spots if they need to. But the biggest thing is they didn't really figure out how to how to play together too well. They don't have guys that can really create too many shots. So they now have 4 months more to kind of figure out how they should be doing these things. And granted, they haven't been able to work together too much, but it's something they realized when the season was shut down. They're like, hey, we have to work on this. So there's always the chance, like everyone else in the East, like I don't expect a ton out of Miami. The Pacers, I'm not expecting a ton out of. The Nets, like, aren't going to do anything. The Wizards are not going to make the playoffs. And the Magic, like, the 4 teams I could see doing anything in the East are the Bucks, the Raptors, the Celtics, and the 76ers. And honestly, like, the 76ers have enough talent just to get it done somehow in the playoffs. Plus, they've had a few injuries throughout the course of the season.
They should have reseeded. I know this is not the point of the podcast, but, like, the idea that Brooklyn and Orlando are going to make the playoffs and, Memphis and Portland and New Orleans, only one of those guys makes it. Come on. What are we doing here? Let's reseed. Let's have some fun.
Yeah. I mean, the Nets are just a free square for whoever plays them.
Yeah, and then that's a whole other DFS conversation that we had off air as well, too, like Milwaukee, and they're up by 7 games up on Toronto. Whoever they play in the first round, it's going to be a cakewalk, and they have no incentive to play their guys the first 8 games either, just kind of get in playing shape and just rest a bunch of dudes, and the minutes are going to be all over the place. It's going to be wild as far as Milwaukee, but my general thought as far as –
it's going to be fun, like depending on where they're playing at in the day, because any given day, Bledsoe, Middleton, Giannis can sit, and then that just makes the other guys just automatic plays. So planning things out are going to be hugely profitable.
So, like, you say that, and first of all, me and you have a different definition of fun, because I don't think that's going to be fun. It might be, depending on if you land in the right place.
Look, I've been waiting to work for months. I'm absolutely ready to be stuck to my couch for 10 hours in a night.
So here's the thing, though. Like, they can rest 3 players and still play, 13 guys, and everybody gets 27 minutes. Like, that's another thing they could do.
Yeah.
Right? Like, so I don't know.
I mean, we'll figure it out.
We will figure it out. Or we'll be disgruntled. But, yeah. I don't know.
I mean, we can figure it out and still be disgruntled. They're not mutually exclusive.
That feels like a package deal in the most likely scenario for sure. But, yeah, Philadelphia right now in the book is currently I'm scrolling 28-1. I think they're 9-1 to win the East for what it's worth. But 28-1, you can hedge out if nothing else, I imagine. I assume you can hedge out at 28-1. Yeah, sure, why not? We got Denver at 25-1. What do you think of Jokic, of course, had COVID. He looks skinnier as well.
Yeah, I guarantee it did miracles for him.
Well, it's funny because I was talking to Nicole about this, that Denver fan, and she was suggesting that, like, maybe it's a negative, just his size, because he used his girth, he used his body. He's not a guy that, like, is known he's not going to be distinctly faster, right? So he used his body to get all those boards for positioning and things like that. So
I mean, he did to an extent, but he also had trouble getting up and down the floor for a large portion of the season.
That's an interesting way of looking at it too. So it's
a 6-month break. I'm not really expecting Joker to be in great shape, and you look at him and he looks in pretty good shape.
Yeah, and again, like, we don't know. I don't feel comfortable speculating how it's going to affect it. It's probably going to be different for each player. And you mentioned the Pacers. Brogdon is not back yet, I don't believe, but I think he's supposed to come back. They talked about he had COVID as well. Oladipo was out, and now today, I'm not sure if you saw it, they're saying he's questionable now. There's a report he may come back. I don't think it matters from, like, a gambling perspective. I don't think Indiana's in play, and that's what it sounded like you said as well too. Yeah,
no, I'm not. I'm not betting on it. Even at 33-1 to win the Eastern Conference, I still don't really expect too much out of them.
Yeah, my Miami Heat, you kind of threw them away. For what it's worth, they had the hardest strength of schedule. And again, these things don't matter too much because a lot of the
strength of schedule doesn't matter for the Heat during the regular season.
Well, you're talking about the basically teams flying in and they have the Miami, the South Beach flu, is what they call it?
No, I was talking about the Heat are in the playoffs. Like the Eastern Conference is set. The Wizards are not making it. They don't. I think Beal already said he's out, right?
Yeah, Beal is. But I'm just talking about, like, jockeying for position. But like you said, they're almost. It's like 4 and 5. There's no difference, right? I guess Philadelphia's probably going to jump Indiana. Maybe we get a Miami-Philadelphia first round. That could be fun. As a Heat fan, we're going to lose most likely, but sure, it'll be entertaining if nothing else. What's weird about Philadelphia is, everybody talked about their home road splits this year. They were 29-2 at home, which is amazing, and 10-24 in the road. What are they in Orlando? What's their Orlando splits? Probably winning, I assume. I don't know.
I can't remember. I remember I used to look at a lot. It's been months, but I used to look at a lot of home road splits. And yeah, Miami was one of the more interesting ones last year and then entirely switched this year.
Miami 27-5 at home this year, of course, especially when teams come in with an extra day to play in South Beach. They tend to get sidetracked a little bit, which makes a lot of sense as well. And Miami's a fairly good team. They're just not good enough. Unless you really want to embrace wonkiness, you really want to embrace chaos, and like the only team that kind of survives a trickle down effect of some real wackiness, like Giannis is out for whatever reason, and maybe Pascal Siakam as well, and Tatum too, or something like that. But I suppose there's a scenario. What about Boston? We skipped over the Celtics. You mentioned in passing. As far as the odds on Boston, we're looking at to win the title 17-1. As far as the actual conference, Boston is 7-1. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I think I'd rather go with the conference. Like, I think they have a better shot at being the Bucks than they do at being the Clippers or the Lakers. So, I mean, it's not quite the same odds, but like, I think that both Toronto, well, less so Toronto with COVID put in there just because of all the amount of minutes they have to play. Like, something goes around and they're just done for. But like Boston, I could easily see them being the Bucks in the playoffs. Like, I could see a few teams being the Bucks in the playoffs, even though they've been great this year and now they're coming in fully rested and healthy. Like, I'd say Boston's probably my favorite there to get the conference leader, just because like the difference between Boston, Toronto, Miami when it comes to winning the conference, like Boston, it's the same as Toronto, and then only plus 200 more than Philly. But you look at the actual conference winner, and Boston's plus 1,700, Toronto's plus 2,200, and Philly's plus 2,800. So you're getting a lot more value at the conference winner than you are getting it for the champion winner. I mean, realistically, they're going to be a odds-on dog, probably at plus 180, going up against the Lakers or the Clippers. So you're probably better off betting Boston to be the conference winner and then betting Boston to beat the Clippers money line with all that. And if you parlay it like that, like I know what a lot of people have talked about that a lot of times before, like just not actually taking the futures lines, going with rather like betting on them to win the series each time.
Yeah.
Because you can often find a whole lot more value, which is why I generally don't do futures a whole lot. I just basically bet on the onset of the series. And so I think that's a better way to do it with the Celtics. Like, I think plus 700 still offers a decent amount of value for the conference, but plus 1,700 probably doesn't offer a ton of value for the overall championship, especially with the uncertainty that Corona has.
And that's another one of those teams that are kind of a national team. You can make that argument, I suppose, too. But you're right, 7-1 versus 9-1, like Boston versus Philly, and then you jump to the title, 17-1 versus 28-1. That number expands greatly. So you're much better off taking Boston, probably at 7-1 just to win the Eastern Conference. You mentioned like a betting the matchups, right? And let's say you like the team. Let's say you like Miami and they're playing against Philadelphia. Do you like to sit there and wait for like Miami and like hope Miami loses game one so you can get like a great odds, your way for game two going forward? Like the entire contest, the entire bracket, I guess you could say.
I mean, I feel like in the past that's largely been based off of like who's home for game one, like because you lose at home or you lose a road game, like the odds are still going to change pretty drastically, but it's also something you kind of expected. Whereas with this, like there's no home road splits, like it doesn't really make no team has a home away edge the first few games. Like a team like the 76ers, they have their first game on the road. They're most likely going to lose it. They just have to take one on the road, and they're so dominant at home that they still you're better off betting after the first game. But like with the bubble and everything, it's really not offering you a distinct advantage to kind of wait in that scenario for this.
I don't know why I couldn't figure out the term matchup. I'm saying bracket. Well, why couldn't I figure out like the concept of two teams playing each other at best of seven? I guess I'm a little rusty or something like that, Grant.
It's almost like we haven't seen sports in months.
I'm not making any excuses.
If you're gonna bet on the Bucks, you just bet on them at plus 250 to win championship. Although I'm not a huge fan of it. Just if you're in belief that they will not crumble a little bit like they did last year, and they are legitimately the best team as their record would suggest, then you bet on the Bucks to win the championship. But I don't think you bet on them to win the conference.
I like Boston 7-1, and I like Philadelphia 28-1 to win the whole deal. Milwaukee, I just don't like 167 minus 167 to win the conference. Not exciting.
I wouldn't even give them a full toss-up to win the conference.
You wouldn't take even odds.
I mean, I probably would take even odds, but yeah. I mean, I guess the main thing is they're either going through, like, Toronto and Boston are going to play each other in the conference semifinals. Milwaukee's going to get Miami or the 76ers.
Probably the 76ers, but who knows? We'll see. I mean, it's probably going to come down to Milwaukee, Boston, Toronto versus either Miami or Philadelphia. Did I say that correctly? No, I didn't. Yeah, never mind. Doesn't matter. We'll move on. I think you. What
about any interest in any of the Eastern or the Western Conference guys outside of the LA teams? Like the Rockets sitting there at plus 700. I don't think that offers quite enough value there. I mean, they can beat pretty much any team just the way they play basketball. They can beat or lose to any team. Like they can lose to the Thunder. They can lose to anyone. Like Dallas was playing great basketball when they had both Luka and Porzingis on the floor, and Porzingis really came together the second half of the season once he was a little bit healthier and he learned to play a little bit better with Luka. I mean, plus 1,400 though, I'm all right with that. Just not great. The Nuggets, like 1,200 seems like a decent line for how deep they are and how good of a team they are, and considering how much trouble they had when they had all those injuries for weeks, and you had guys like I can't even remember his name, point guard. We had a conversation about this.
Murray?
It wasn't even Murray wasn't playing. Like they were down a ton of guys early February. So like they were playing great basketball when everyone's together, and they play great defensively when they're in a healthy group. But plus 1,200, I think a large amount of Denver's advantage is the fact that they play in high altitude. So playing over in Miami, conditioning is really not that much of an advantage for them anymore.
Yeah, for what it's worth, I saw a note before we started recording that MPJ is not there just yet, not in Orlando just yet for whatever reason, and same thing with Gary Harris, I believe. Gary Harris, what happened to that dude? Like, it feels like he's regressed for multiple years. He had a leg injury. Maybe he hasn't fully recovered from that. Not really sure what's going on there. But
I wonder if they'll actually play MPJ a little bit more during this time. Like, just get it. He's obviously more recovered after an extra 4 months. I have to assume someone his age stuck inside is probably just going to practice a whole lot, realizing he probably needs to play for a big contract after this. And this is a perfect spot for him to do it. So, I mean, Denver still, though, at 12-1 to win the Western Conference. I don't know if I'm going to go with that.
Saw this pre-show as well, too, of Philadelphia reporting that Ben Simmons is going to play a bunch of 4, apparently. I don't know. Maybe that hurts a guy like Horford, I suppose. I'm always curious.
Well, Horford was coming off the bench for a while. Like, that was basically how the rotation went.
Yeah, but I think he said, I want to say he said he wasn't feeling healthy. There's some kind of comment that came out basically explaining why he's been terrible. I don't know if he's improved. It's worth noting. We'll kind of dig into that as DFS creeps up. And I can't really say what exactly Horford feels like a guy that's on the back end of his career, still pretty solid, but just not as good as he used to be.
Yeah. I mean, plus, like, he was doing great off the second unit. He was like, they need to have a little bit more depth. Shake Milton came in and actually performed pretty well. They needed someone in there who could actually create their own shot. Like, Shake probably helps out, especially with Horford coming off the bench. And then Richardson was just all over the place and couldn't shoot at all. Plus, they don't really need that much height in the starting unit. So having Horford off the bench there is probably not the worst idea in the world, and playing Simmons at the 4, not a terrible idea.
By the way, can I just throw this one out here? This is opening night, New Orleans versus Utah. You know what the line is in this game?
What was it? Utah plus 4.5?
No, they're plus 2.5, and I think it's moved. I want to say New Orleans was like minus 1.5, minus 2 earlier. Now it's minus 2.5. But look, I'm sticking to the narrative that they want New Orleans to win this game. Utah, they've lost Bogdanovich. Gobert and Mitchell clearly don't seem to like each other or get along, or however you want to say it. But I
don't think much of the NBA likes Gobert right now, considering.
Well, that's a whole weird. It's worth talking about. It's so odd because you can kind of look intentionally, unintentionally. Maybe he saved lives. You could make that argument too, right? Like,
yeah.
He started the whole. Maybe out of stupidity, he was just clowning around, having fun. Like, I don't think he was intentionally trying to infect people, But it's a whole other conversation. But like, you could spin it and say, yeah. I understand what you're saying, though.
Yeah, a lot of people were really stupid back then.
Yeah, he was touching on the microphones, obviously, just kind of, and like the room laughed for what it's worth. Like the media room thought that was funny, but I guess maybe that's just like an awkward laugh. I don't know. We're getting sidetracked. The point is, New Orleans on opening night, Grant, they're gonna beat Utah. That's the first game out the gate. They're featuring the Utah Jazz. No, they're featuring the New Orleans Pelicans and Zion and Drew and Lonzo. I like the Pelicans -2.5.
And Ingram and Favors. Don't forget everyone.
Those guys
Ingram
too,
was
yeah.
playing.
I didn't want to keep
Ingram was
going.
playing better basketball than Lonzo was.
Well, I mean, he's a big name though, Lonzo.
Yeah.
Sort of.
Yeah.
So I'm just throwing the bet out there. I don't know. I like New Orleans -2.5.
Yeah, I almost threw that bet down too, but I don't know. Still got plenty of time.
The Clippers and the Lakers. The problem with this, it's the back half of the doubleheader and opening night. The problem with this is the game doesn't matter. I guess it matters more to the Clippers, I suppose, because they're still battling for the 2 spot. But the Lakers are 5 games up on the Clippers. They're not going to lose 5 games in an 8-game stretch. Like that's just not going to happen. I mean, outside of something really, really goofy, which I suppose is possible, but you know what I mean.
So you say that the Clippers are still fighting for seeding, but let's be honest, it doesn't matter if they're the 2 or the 3 seed. They don't care.
Yeah, because they don't know if they're going to play Houston or Dallas or OKC. I mean,
yeah, they just don't want to play the Lakers before the championship.
So yeah, it's a weird one. Like, do you think coaches will try to run their best rotations there? Or it's the first game back, and it's a weird. I don't know how that's going to work. We need to hear some coach speak in that one.
Yeah, no, I don't think the Clippers, like a team that's notorious for not playing their starters and a team that has tons of depth and can still, without Kawhi or Paul George, beat most teams.
Yeah, and we've seen stretches this year with George. Like, they babied him and played him 27 minutes, 26 minutes. And
that was more when he first came out, and then they started playing him almost 30 and still resting him fairly often.
They've had a lot of blowouts too, and Doc is one of those guys. He doesn't have that sweep the leg D'Antoni mentality where he doesn't take Harden out to the last whistle with 3 minutes to go and they're up by 37 points or something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So let's clean up our thoughts here as far as the futures. Western Conference. Do you want the actual Western Conference, or you want to talk about the title?
I mean, the actual Western. I mean, even the title. I just don't know if there's anyone I really want to bet on outside of the Clippers or even the Lakers. I mean, we look at it. Dallas maybe at 40-1 is not the worst idea in the world.
Mm-hmm.
But Houston at plus 1,200 to win. I think they have the best shot at beating the Lakers or the Clippers or both. But it's just not a bet I really want to make. It just doesn't seem worth it. Them having to get lucky versus both the Lakers and the Clippers, I don't know if that's going to entirely happen.
I mentioned this qualifier earlier in the show about Harden. I'm hard at work here on the Twitter machine, and apparently at least somebody's debunking and saying that that's not true about him having corona, which, again, the source wasn't great either, so that's why I put the asterisk by it. As of right now, it does not look like Harden has.
I'm not going to be surprised if Harden's picked up a lot of viruses over the years, but I'm not fully convinced that he has.
How do you think, out of curiosity, what would be your best guess on how we would have acquired those?
I would guess that it was probably an exotic dance club, I think is what they're called.
Gentlemen,
funniest thing throughout Corona was there's a place out here right in a Target parking lot that is one of those places, and there are 7 virus-free stages. I'm like, maybe coronavirus, but not other ones.
This is at a Target parking lot?
Yeah. No, strangely enough, and it's the only place you can drink after 2 a.m. in Denver.
Okay. Well, I mean, if ever I'm in town, I'll Yelp it. You got a couch I can crash on?
Yeah, but you're gonna have to shower after you go there.
Well, I mean, why would I not shower?
I don't know.
You think that's a deal breaker for me? Well, forget it.
I was just letting you know. Although I don't know if I'd trust my couch.
Fair enough. And final thoughts as far as basketball before we pivot over to baseball. I was hoping for some wonkiness. I was hoping for some random darts, and I don't know, man. You're giving me the Clippers. We talked Boston a little bit when the East. You're not embracing chaos, the possibility of chaos at least.
I mean, the main thing is I don't want to do the Lakers because if they lose LeBron, they're done. They're not making it. Like,
Sure.
Not a chance. If the Clippers lose PG or Kawhi, I still think they got a shot. And then, I mean, my main thing is like to probably stay away from Toronto with how much they play their guys, because we don't know if any of them had corona. We don't know if there's any lasting side effects. We don't, if any of them do get corona, that's a huge amount of minutes that they have to get rid of. Whereas the Celtics have a bit more depth, and like they have what? They have Brown, they have Tatum, they have Hayward, who's probably going to be a bit more healthy now. They have Smart. They have a lot of guys that can take over a lot of minutes. And they have
Smart had corona, right? Am I making that up? I feel like that happened.
I think he had corona, but I think he was one of those guys. So the biggest thing, I'm not a doctor. This is not doctor advice, although I know far too many doctors. Like the ones that are typically asymptomatic, don't really experience and don't have any underlying conditions are more likely to not have any lasting effects, whereas guys like Von Miller is still feeling it because he has asthma. So a lot of asymptomatic people doesn't really affect them, but the guys that are like, yeah, no, I do not feel great. So like Gobert, who was vomiting on the sidelines and having trouble breathing, probably not a guy that you can trust to have fully recovered if he would have gotten it recently.
Kemba Walker expected back, but they did talk about it possibly his minutes being limited early.
I forgot he played for the Celtics. Man, it's been a while. I'm like, I'm missing someone in there.
But, like, I don't think it matters. Again, like, just as long as he's, quote-unquote, he's fine after the 8 games, the playoffs start. Like, he's a guy that'll just kind of get in playing shape, I assume, and it's not a big deal. And jockeying for position there in the East is not that much of a, probably going to get the 3 spot, and we'll see. Maybe they'll face well, I'm not going to speculate on that necessarily. But we would talk about this as pre-show. The best games, we're going to say, as far as actual games to watch, will be, like, 2 through 7, like 3 through 7 in the West. Denver, Utah, OKC, Houston, Dallas. They're all within, 3 games of each other. That's going to be a lot of fun to watch.
Do you think the Thunder or the Jazz have a shot at all?
No. I mean, something really – unless we have a bunch of cases. But no. Like, I mean, a realistic shot outside of extreme wonkiness, those are my 2 least favorite teams under the assumption that New Orleans gets the 8th spot.
Who do you think is more likely? If the Pelicans get in, who do you think is more likely to make it to the championship? The Pelicans, the Jazz, or the Thunder?
Well, the problem is the Pelicans face the Lakers. So they're
the problem is that the way the bracket works, everyone has to face either the Lakers, the Clippers, or both.
Yeah.
So the Pelicans just happen to be doing it earlier.
Yeah. I mean, if you have to face them, you never know what you're going to get in the first round, I suppose, where teams aren't necessarily all finally tuned up. And
I think that isn't that how it goes? Like the bracket is actually a set bracket like March Madness and not you just play the next closest seed.
Are they? I don't think they're reseeded. This is something I feel like we should know, but I don't believe they are.
I'm fairly certain they're not. I'm fairly certain that they are not reseeded like in football.
Yeah, I don't think so either. But Utah, I'm not buying Utah. No Bogdanovich, and like that team chemistry is whatever. And that team also was one of those teams. Just, I don't know. They're 41-23, but I never totally bought them. OKC feels like a team that has tremendously just been outplayed their talent. SGA's had a pretty good season. Chris Paul's 35-year-old point guard. He caught a fish today apparently. Good for him. But
impressive.
I saw like Instagram or Twitter or something like that.
I thought about learning how or starting to fish during quarantine, and then
I don't know how to fish.
I didn't.
Yeah, you look like a guy that knows how to fish, though. I would believe you know how to fish.
Oh yeah, no, I'm not a great fisher. I don't have the patience. I just end up sitting in the boat and drinking beer, which is guaranteed way to take a nap when you get back at like 10 in the morning.
Yeah, but yeah, I'm with you. Those are like 2 of my least. OKC and Utah outside. I mean, I'd much rather play on Houston and play on that 3-point variance where they can beat anybody if the 3-pointers are falling their way. Dallas, at least they have 2 studs, so I prefer Dallas over Utah and OKC as well, despite whatever they're currently in the 7th spot. But again, we already talked about how it doesn't really matter so much. And New Orleans, I think they would give the Lakers a battle. I'll say that. Like, they'll steal a game or 2.
I'm honestly still like not going to be surprised if New Orleans ends up beating the Lakers.
And the other part is, again, it's 3-1 for New Orleans to even get in, for what it's worth. Like, it might be Memphis. If it's Memphis, the Lakers are beating Memphis. I'm
giving Memphis no shot. Whereas
0 chance.
Yeah, whereas the Pelicans, like, their record does not reflect how good they are because of all the injuries they've had. Like, the Pelicans healthy, I would put well above the Jazz or the Thunder.
I would give Portland a better chance than Memphis to beat the Lakers.
Oh, yeah.
But, like, that's still not very high. That's not saying much.
Well, they also had a lot of injuries, too. Plus, they had, at one point, Melo was taking the majority of their shots, which is never a good sign.
Is that a bad strategy?
I've heard it's not great.
The dodgeball announcers are like, what's the bold strategy?
That's a bold strategy, Cotton. We'll see if it pays off.
They are getting back, and they're talking about. I heard speculation. Are they going to play Whiteside alongside Nurkic or Collins as well? It's going to be weird how they have those big man rotation there for Portland.
I can't imagine, like, with even Nurk coming back, I can't imagine him playing more than 20 minutes.
No, he's a big dude coming back from a terrible injury. Yeah. I wouldn't think they'd run him to the ground, but, like, if nothing else, that's depth to that team, and Collins as well. But give me your final thoughts on basketball before we throw some baseball stuff out there.
Boston to win the Eastern Conference, Clippers to win the championship. If you really want to throw a dart, I mean, I've got nothing. Like, just be cognizant of team depth, because Corona can throw a wrench in every single team's plans outside of a few that just have a bunch of depth.
Yeah, that's why we like the Clippers. That's one of the big reasons why I like the Clippers. And
yeah, why I like the Clippers and why I like Boston.
Yeah, and the Clippers can sustain a loss to Paul George much quicker or much easier, I guess you can say, than the Lakers can sustain a loss to LeBron or Davis. And that's why I don't get that line. I know you explained as to where it's at, because the Lakers are this public team. And there's probably a bunch of money on them from the beginning of the year when people were speculating about Davis coming over and all that. I would imagine that has something to do with it as well, too. But, all right, let's jump over and talk some baseball. We did talk baseball yesterday at Cardi from Vegas perspective as well, too, at the end of that podcast, if you guys are interested in hearing it. Let's see, MVP, Cy Young, home run leader. Let's talk MVP first. Let's jump in the American League. Mike Trout at 2-1. We hated that number for multiple.
It's so terrible.
Go on, tell me why it's terrible.
Well, first of all, we talked about this earlier. He's popping out a kid. I don't know
a proxy.
Huh?
His wife is popping. Yeah. This isn't Junior.
Okay, fantastic movie, by the way.
I know you like DeVito, so I figured you get the reference.
Also a big Arnold fan. But yeah, like, Trout is not a guy that, like, first of all, 40 of the 60 games are being played within your own division. And so they have to play against Oakland, not a great stadium to play in. Seattle, especially at this time of year, not a great stadium to play in, because it's going to go all the way, until the end of September. And I mean, Seattle's beautiful, but it's not the best hitting environment, although it's decent for home runs. Like, Houston, not the best stadium, although who knows if they're going to have the dome open or closed, because that's another thing we have to realize. Like, we don't know what states are going to allow people in, so we don't know if I assume if people are allowed in, they're probably going to be more apt to leave the dome open, just because that'll help prevent the spread, although who knows. I'm not a scientist, but, like, just off the top of my head, those are things I have to worry about. So Mike Trout's not going to be playing in great parks. He may be the best player, but he's not going to be playing in great parks just because he's playing so much of the year in his own division. So, like, for MVP, Trout at plus 200 when he may miss anywhere from 3 to 12 games.
To 60.
Yeah.
Like, he still might not play.
Yeah. So Trout at plus 200, like, any 60-game sample size, there's 20 to 30 different people that can actually win the MVP. Like, you take different 60-game sample sizes last year, and almost 80% of them, Trout's not winning MVP. And so you look at the guys that can definitely get hot, the guys that can definitely go on a tear over a small sample size. Like, we know Jose Ramirez is a guy that started off terrible last year, and then he went on a bit of a heater. He's a guy that can go just absolutely out of his mind for a short period of time. He's not a guy that I hate at 25-1. A guy like Chapman, who gets so much done on the defensive end, I'd think about it a little bit more if it weren't for that same division problem that we have. I mean, honestly, JD Martinez potentially, but I mean, he's not really fielding, and I don't know if I want to go with him. Like, my favorite, even though he plays in these parks, is probably Ohtani at plus 3,000. Like, the guy's going to be – he's one of the better hitters in the league. Before he got injured, he was one of the better pitchers in the league. And he's had just enough time where Tommy John should be almost entirely healed. Like, he doesn't have a whole lot of practice going on, but he's reported, I'm assuming, if I remember correctly. And like some guys come back from Tommy John's actually better because their UCL is actually stronger. So Ohtani playing both ways, like they can probably play him a little bit more because of the way the schedule is this season. So Ohtani at 30-1, I don't think is a terrible bet this year.
I made this argument yesterday to Cardi. Tell me what you think of it. Well, first of all, one argument, the Astros have to be clearly the better players. If it's a tie, they're out. The Astros are not getting MVP, correct?
I mean, sometimes that's the case. Like, but yeah. I mean, with Alvarez, with Bregman, with Altuve, with Springer, it's unlikely that any of them end up with the MVP.
Yeah, and this other argument was that 60-game season as opposed to 162 games. 162 games, you're going to see some eye-popping, like, season-long stats. You're going to see 48 homers with 140 RBIs and 110 runs and whatever, 310 batting average, whatever. Like, people still care about these things when it comes to awards and all that. In a 60-game season, Grant, we're going to see, I don't know, 19 homers, 67 RBIs, 60 runs. It's not going to be eye-popping, although, like, if you, like, mapped it out and, like,
if you multiply it by, 2.6, then you're going to have some ridiculous numbers.
Yes, but it's still, like, not jumping off the page, which is the counter-argument. What might happen in a small sample, starting pitchers are going to pitch 12 times, maybe 13 times. In a 12-game sample, a starting pitcher like Garrett Cole could, for real, have an ERA of, like, 0.8. Like, that's a thing that could happen. And if you see a 0.8 ERA, I know we don't have a big sample size of pitchers getting MVPs, and, of course, they have their own war with Cy Young, which we'll talk about in a second. But if it's going to happen, why can't it happen in this season? Why can't Garrett Cole at 50-1? Like, again, he had to be, like, basically perfect, more or less perfect. But you're getting 50-1 on it, and he only has to do it for 11 to 12 games, I suppose. The Yankees, in theory, get into the playoffs and all that too. Like, small sample size, the pitching numbers. The point is, the pitching numbers have a better chance to pop as opposed to the hitting numbers.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's just the way it goes. And pitchers are obviously more likely to get injured throughout the course of the season for blisters or anything else that are short period of time injuries. So it's always possible that a guy like Cole, a guy like Verlander, a guy like any of these guys end up pitching a little bit more than they should. Plus, like, in a shortened season where every game counts more, I would assume that a lot of teams with bad bullpens are going to allow their pitchers to go a little bit deeper than they normally would, because they're also not going to have as much accumulated wear and tear throughout the course of the season. Cole probably not as much because the Yankees have a great bullpen, if I remember correctly. It's been a while. But I don't know. I'm trying to look through these odds.
So what's going to happen, Grant? We're having rosters the first 2 weeks of the season. I believe it's to the 15th, I want to say. Maybe it's 3 weeks into the season. Whatever it is. They're starting off with – oh, man, did I have it reversed now? I think they start with 30. Is that correct? They start with 30 men. Okay, roster size of the season will start at 30 players until the 15th day of the season, then move to 28 players until the 28th day, and then 26 players for the remainder of the season. So I think we're going to see at least the 3, 4, and 5 in the rotation, then getting the hook kind of early because there's going to be plenty of bullpen arms. I guess that's what's going to happen here.
Not a speculation. So yes and no. Like, I think in the AL it probably is going to be, but remember we have the universal DH now, so there's not going to be nearly as many swaps. So a guy in the AL who gets continually swapped out for a hitter, like depending on where it's at in the game, a guy like Max Scherzer, who continually, like, they didn't do it a ton, especially since they had a terrible bullpen, but he could be in for an extra 10% of innings. And again, that's across the board in the NL, so it's a little bit different. But pitchers that tend to get – Dodgers pitchers, for instance, probably get a pretty big bump.
Oh, yeah. My argument is for the front-end pitchers. The back-end pitchers, I think, get the hook quicker. But the front-end pitchers become that much more elite. And that
I mean, isn't it a 25-man roster, and aren't they able to call up new arms all the time?
Okay, so it's a 30-man roster until the 15th day of the season. Then it moves to a 28-player roster on after the 20th day, and then it becomes a 26-player roster for the rest of the season. And I'd assume most of those guys, I'm guessing, are mostly arms. I don't know how quickly they can move them up and move them down. Like, this guy's fresh, this guy's not fresh, move them down. I don't even know if they've even outlined that yet. But my guess is it's going to accentuate how much better the Coles and the Scherzers of the world are than the 4s and the 5s. And they're going to separate even that much more.
Yeah, but even that, like, hitters can go on massive streaks. Like, I mean, you look at 2 weeks into the season and you'll see a guy like, I don't know, Preston Wilson back in 2008.
Preston Wilson
was leading the league in RBIs by like 20.
Oh, he had like 140 or maybe 160 in Colorado.
Yeah, he led that year, but he started off the season like 4 home run lead and I think 15 RBIs up on the next closest person 30 games into the season. We see it every single year. Like I remember Luis Gonzalez was known for being great the first half of the season, terrible the second half of the season. So you can get these guys with first half stats that are like mind-blowing pace. Like Rhys Hoskins, rookie year, 50 games, 20 home runs. Like that's so in a 60-game season, we can assume that he'd have a 20% or 19% increase, which would be close to 24.
Well, he's fallen back. I mean, obviously, maybe pitchers adjusted to him and their power is still there. But I
mean, he also waited on a few more pitches and he had a change to his swing over the offseason. You know, I love me some Reese's Pieces.
I know. We're not even on the NL yet, and you're already talking Rhys Hoskins. Boomstick Nelly Cruz is 125-1. That was the one we talked about. That was kind of interesting.
The problem is like the people who vote on MVP probably take into account defense a little bit more. I mean, when was the last time we saw a DH win MVP?
David Ortiz, maybe? I don't know. I'm guessing.
Yeah,
I don't follow these things very well.
Yeah, I mean, I'm trying to remember. I think it was like David Ortiz and maybe Edgar Martinez back in the early 2000s.
He was awesome. And there has been a precedent set as far as pitchers. We talked about this before the show as well, too. Pitchers winning the MVP. Dennis Eckersley did it. Clemens did it. And there was somebody else. Was it Verlander? There's some other guy that recently, not too long ago.
There was Clemens, Verlander, and Eckersley, and then that was every single one of them since 2000 or since 1986, and then Kershaw came close with a 1.7 ERA in 2014.
Yeah, but I'm just opening up to the plausibility or the possibility. And again, 80-1 on Verlander. Verlander can absolutely have a 0.8, 0.9 ERA after 12 games.
And are they using juice balls again?
We don't know. That's
the thing. If they're not using juice balls,
they don't publicly announce like just so everybody knows the ball is juiced this year.
Well, I'm saying if they don't end up using it, then Verlander, biggest problem was home runs. He probably is one of the biggest beneficiaries because of his high fly ball rate.
Jose Ramirez 25-1. Anything else kind of sort of somewhat interesting here? Gallo.
I saw a few decent ones.
Meadows at 66-1 is kind of interesting.
Yeah, Meadows is definitely a good one to consider there. Sano, I know that he hasn't done great recently, but the dude still just hits bombs.
Corona as well, but I mean, we don't know. Assuming he's fine.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's far enough ahead of time, and I haven't I'd look before I place a bet. I'd look more into it, but he wouldn't be a bad one. Looking at a lot of the guys in the Yankees division, because you're playing in Boston, you're playing in New York, and you're playing in Toronto and Baltimore. Like that's the best when 66% of their games are being played in good ballparks. I feel like I'm missing one team there. Toronto, Boston, New York, Orioles. Rays are a
terrible schedule.
I know it's more about the park and the fact that they're going to be playing the Orioles pitching a whole lot is going to be fairly advantageous, although there's some decent pitching in the rest of the division. But like looking at guys in that division is probably not the worst idea in the world. And I mean, any one of them can end up making the wild card or not, but like just looking at guys that can get on a real heater. I mean, Judge first 50 games in the league was just crushing it. So playing in good ballparks is going to be very advantageous.
You're betting on health. You're talking about those Yankee guys, right? Judge and Stanton.
Yeah, which health is less of a concern over 60 games than it is over 162 games.
We should say, for what it's worth, Cardi, the bat out there talking about the teams that benefit most based upon the 60-game schedule. It's a lot of the Central teams. The Reds have a big benefit. The Cardinals, the Cubs, the Indians, the Twins, which makes a lot of sense as well, too, picking on some terrible teams there in the Eastern Conference. As far as the teams that are hurt the most, I'm segueing here. I'm stalling because I'm trying to pull it up right now. Well, I don't have it up in front of me. I failed the listeners. Do you happen to have that in front of you or no? Probably not.
What'd you just ask?
The teams that the 60-game schedule hurts the most. I think Baltimore is one of the teams that hurts the most.
Yeah, well, I'm not
from a winning perspective. Yeah,
Yeah, I'm not really betting on Baltimore to make the playoffs. And I mean, it seems like a pretty bad team to bet on.
I mean, look, baseball variance is weird. It's a 60-game schedule, so anything
It
can
could
happen
be
in a
a
small
Chris
sample.
Davis
But
hits an actual 50 home run year again. I think that happens every few years.
you know, I wouldn't be shocked if he goes out there and it's like 16 home runs or something like that, and bats like
Yeah.
190 for whatever. Who cares about that, right? Let's talk about the MVP in the National League. Bats at plus 550, Bellinger plus 700. For what it's worth, Bellinger I saw today, apparently he changed his swing. I don't know why, but maybe he thinks he can improve it. It was already really good. Looks a little weird, but it gets the job done. Acuna 9-1, Arenado at 18-1, Soto at 10-1, Yelich at 7-1, Harper 18-1. And stop me if anything's gonna do anything for you. Anything sort of jump out amongst those guys, or you're more into the darts like the long shots.
Again, with Corona and any number of things that can happen, I'm probably a little bit more into the long shots, like
Rhys Hoskins.
Oh gosh, yeah, I was going to wait to get to that, but Rhys Hoskins is definitely 66-1. Like maybe this swing change is going to be beneficial for him. I mean, we saw what he did at the beginning of the year, and I think there was one point where, like, the main thing with him is he takes way too many pitches, but like if he's not being terribly patient, he can just absolutely crush it. I'm very, very jaded, so I won't get too far into it. But Reese is a good one. Tatis can absolutely just hammer a whole bunch of balls out of the yard during a
I
short
think they
period
have
of time.
7 games in Coors. I could be wrong, but I feel like they have 7 games in Coors Field.
They have 7 games in Coors, and there's the potential that Arizona is going to have the dome open because of everything. Although with the way Arizona's going right now with cases, wouldn't be surprised if they weren't allowed to play anyone there. But the problem is that he's still playing a lot of games in LA, San Francisco, and in San Diego. So, like, that's probably not the best place to be picking on someone. Or the best division to be picking on someone who's a batter. It's probably more beneficial for pitchers. But NL East, NL Central, NL West kind of is pretty much even. Like, it's only really the AL where that matters too much because, like, the AL East has a clear advantage over every other division because there's only one bad ballpark in the bunch, and the other 4 are 4 of the best places for hitters in the majors. I mean, I think Boston's number 2, Toronto's number 6, especially if the dome's open. Yankees is like number 10. I think almost all of them are in the top 10 if I remember correctly. But National League, like Coors Division, you still have the best. You have the best and the worst ballpark that you're playing a lot of games in. NL Central, most of them outside of the Wyndham Wrigley and the Brewers and Great American Ball Smart Park are all fine, but yeah, then you have the Pirates Park. I can't remember the name. It's been so long.
Sorry, I don't know that.
Gosh, I hate
Siri is just jumping in and cutting you off.
Gosh, every time I hate her so much. But yeah, and then the NL East, like Shea or Citi Field, I guess.
Shea, what year are you in?
It's been a while. Like Marlins, not great ballparks. Braves, Nationals are above average, and Phillies right near the middle. Like the NL, every single division has fairly consistent ballparks, whereas the American League, it's very different. So I'm not looking too much into ballparks outside of, like, obviously the Rockies have a distinct advantage because they play half their games at home, but it's the same every single year. So I'm not looking into ballparks too much just because it kind of evens out over on the NL. So Tatis is a guy that I like. Machado, like, if he goes back to how he used to be, he's always in consideration. Alonso, especially the fact that Mets have one of the most favorable. You want whoever's going to win MVP, you want to have them make the playoffs because who was the last guy to win MVP without making the playoffs? I think it was A-Rod with the Texans.
Texas
Rangers. Gosh darn. Yeah, man. Corona has not been great to me. Oh man.
Oh man. Let's pivot to the NL Cy Young. DeGrom's the favorite at 3.5 to 1. Scherzer's 4 to 1. Bueller is 8 to 1. Flaherty as well is 8 to 1. Strass at 12. I don't know. Anybody there kind of jump out for you? I think Darvish is kind of interesting at 20 to 1. The way he closed the season last year was just really, really impressive. A shortened season shouldn't hurt a guy like Paddock, who it kind of gets babied a little bit. So 33-1, I don't mind that as a long shot. I'm a little bit of a Trevor Bauer's won me over with his Twitter game, just his YouTube game. He's doing pretty good. We are wrong to like. A lot of people got blocked by Trevor Bauer. It wasn't me. Have you been blocked by Bauer, or you don't know?
I've not been blocked by Bauer.
20-1 on Bauer. I don't mind that. Do you like something chalky here, or you like throwing some darts?
I would probably like DeGrom or Scherzer if it weren't a worry that one of them would because I want to go with the longer shots because of what can happen in a shortened season where anyone can get sick at any given time. So I'd like to go with the longer shots. Darvish, obviously, like you look at his full season numbers, they were good, but they weren't great. But he had a horrific walk rate for the first half of the season, then brought it all together. And he's a guy in the past that's shown some incredible stuff. So I like that call. At 20-1 there, I think that's definitely a good one to go with. The guys that I'm probably looking at most in the lower range are Kershaw and Buehler, just because the Dodgers, they always yank guys early. A guy like Scherzer, they'll just let play until the end. A guy like DeGrom, they'll let play for a really long time. And it's because they don't have great bullpens and they have plenty, and they don't have guys that they can really throw in too often to pinch hit for. Whereas the Dodgers have, 8 guys that they can throw in based on a lefty or righty matchup, and they've always done that. But with a universal DH, it's no longer the case. So Buehler and Kershaw would probably be the 2 chalkiest ones that I would want to go for because they're probably right on line with or close to on line with DeGrom and Scherzer. So I think that both of them are pretty decent guys to go with.
It's hard to see a team running away with it, like in a 60-game sample. But I also have a hard time seeing Arizona, Colorado, San Diego, or San Fran threatening the Dodgers for that pennant.
I mean, it's more about any one of them can end up with a wild card. And in a 60-game season, anything kind of happen. But, yeah, Dodgers are – out of all the teams in baseball, I would more likely put money on the Dodgers to win the playoffs than any other one because they have so much depth in every single spot and just they're a drastically more talented team than pretty much any other one in the NL.
Yeah, I mean, the problem with that, of course, everybody else knows that too. Currently, the division odds on that, it's going to be terrible. I'm scrolling down to it right now. The Dodgers, you want to take a guess at what the Dodgers are right now to win the NL West?
Probably minus 250.
Minus 715.
That's a terrible bet. 60 games into the season last year, I think the Mariners were still one of the top teams in the league.
Yeah, and I also think, if I remember correctly, they won a bunch of one-run games.
They also were what's his name? Got traded to the Phillies afterwards.
JJ Putz? Jay Buhner?
No. JJ Putz signed my shoe once.
Well, there you go.
Jay Bruce.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, he was just knocking him out of the park every single day for no apparent reason, and then just that would be his only hits were home runs.
Padres plus 750, Diamondbacks plus 900, Rockies plus 30-1, San Fran 80-1. Jesus.
Yeah, are we switching from the? I don't really. Have
I got curious once we talked.
I'm looking through, and there's maybe Caleb Smith at 150-1 might be worth a shot.
But the Marlins aren't going anywhere.
Yeah, that's kind of the problem. But you can still win. I mean, Cy Young isn't like MVP, like the best pitcher, because DeGrom has won a Cy Young, being not even like Felix Hernandez won a Cy Young with barely a winning record. DeGrom won one with barely a winning record. So it's not impossible for a pitcher to win the Cy Young with a terrible team, whereas MVP just doesn't happen with terrible teams. I mean, it's been Mike Trout and it's been A-Rod are the only guys that win MVPs when their teams don't win the playoffs.
I got one that's way off the board. We're off the reservation. Airman Marquez is 66-1. We've seen that guy have stretches, man. And I understand pitchers are cores, yada, yada, yada. For what it's worth, reports are great as far as where he's at right now. I know everybody's in the greatest shape of their life, right? But reports are good on him, and he's also a guy that's had some runs. He's gotten some stretches, and we're just talking about 12 starts. I think he can give you a run of 12 really good starts at 66-1. 66-1, it's worth a pinch.
I don't mind that, and Woodruff had a pretty solid stretch last year. I haven't looked into how he's feeling or anything like that right now, but he was showing some promise last year, and I think that he's potentially a guy that could make a run at 50-1. And One guy that I actually don't know if I mentioned at all, who, from the AL Cy Young, I obviously get distracted fairly often. Or is it Montas?
Well, we haven't talked about the AL yet. We can talk about it now.
Okay, that makes more sense. I was wondering, like, I feel like I should have mentioned him.
Cole was plus 275, which I don't like that. I mean, like, he can win it, sure, but I don't like those odds. Verlander 7-1, and Snell at 9-1, Clevenger 10-1, Glasnow at 12-1. I don't like those odds on Glasnow. 12-1. Morton 12-1, Bieber, the Biebs, he's 12-1 as well. I don't know, man. Lance Lynn 25-1. How does that happen? Why would we bet on Lance Lynn? That's ridiculous.
Because he's getting a new ballpark that's going to be drastically more advantageous to him, and he was one of the best pitchers in the league last season.
Yeah, but did he Freaky Friday with Gary Cole that we're not aware of? Like, it's still Lance Lynn.
I mean, it's still a season where anyone can.
Yeah, I guess. But 25-1 is not even like a great. Whatever. I'm not on Lance Lynn. Me and Cardi talked about it. We like Paxton and McCullers at 40-1 each. Those are both guys that have had injury problems, so much kind of concerning. Also guys that can labor at times, not necessarily close out games. They'll go like 6 and change and throw 112 pitches. McCullers is the guy, if they played 162 innings, that's a long game, 162 games, he probably wouldn't pitch beyond, 150 innings or so. But because it's a shortened season, he should benefit from that. You can only pitch so many with 12 starts. McCullers, kind of interesting at 40-1. What say you?
McCullers got great stuff, obviously, before his injuries. The 40-1 odds are probably my favorite ones. McCullers, Montas, who was just throwing heat before he got suspended for steroids. Maybe he figured out how to not test positive. And, again, that's the division where you're playing in the best ballpark with pitchers, in the AL, Angels, all that. So he's going to get good ballparks. So Montas, I think, is a good one at 41. I'm right there with you with Paxton because his biggest problem is injuries and when he comes back from injuries. McCullers, great stuff and can put up a great season at any given time. I hate myself for saying this, but you know who I'm interested in at 150-1?
Now I can cheat and look, but, is it Dylan Bundy?
It's Dylan Bundy.
Okay, sell me on Dylan Bundy.
He's going from a terrible ballpark for pitchers to a good one. He learned how to induce soft contact to lefties, and really his biggest problem has been just incredible home run to fly ball variance. It just has not worked out for him. He's a guy with amazing stuff. He can strike out guys, and now he's going to a much better ballpark and a much better divisions where he's a fly ball guy. He's going to be playing 7 games over in Oakland. He's going to be playing in a home ballpark that's not great for home runs, but not terrible. He's going to be playing in Seattle, which is a decent park for fly ball hitters. Houston. So I don't know. He's always been a guy with a ton of talent. It's a 60-game season, so anything can happen. It's 150-1. I'm not happy at myself for saying this, but like him or even Glasnow, not the worst idea in the world.
There's just no value on Glasnow. 12-1 is a bad number in my opinion. I like him, but that's a bad number.
But also Garrett Cole plus 275 is not a great value either.
I'm probably not betting that. He's the best pitcher, yeah, but I'll just bet Cole to win the Cy Young. Just bet on that. I'm sorry, to win the MVP if he just goes incredibly nuts, which is probably not going to happen, but maybe. You never know.
And what about Ohtani at 50-1? Although he's probably only going to.
I don't think he's going to pitch 12 starts. He may, but I wouldn't guess that. I'll take the under on 12.
Yeah.
So that's my issue there. They're not going to award the stick and the Cy Young, I would imagine.
Yeah, probably not. But I don't know. There's I like the 40-1 guys, and I like I like Bundy just because I love to hate myself. He's won me and lost me more money than anyone else in baseball.
Grant, I don't want to keep you too much longer, but I did want to touch on the home run leaders. So Gallo is 10-1. By the way, Gallo, of course, COVID. We don't know. I don't want to speculate how he's going to recover, but love Gallo. Ridiculous stick when he gets a hold of it. But I'm probably not there. Trout is also 10-1 for what it's worth. Alonso's 11-1. Bellinger's 18-1. Judge, if he stays healthy, is 20-1. Who's jumping out for you on the board?
So it would be Alvarez if it weren't for I think we're still not sure if he has corona or not. I don't think he's reported yet.
There's some speculation on Jordan Alvarez. He hasn't reported yet, and Dusty Baker was very non-specific as to the reason why he wasn't there. And who knows? Draw your own conclusion, but we don't know.
Yeah, I mean, the big thing is a lot of these guys are going to end up playing all 60 games who are DHs just because, you're not doing interleague play. So universal DH, I'm not going to be so surprised if Cruz ends up playing 58 games. So I think Nelly Cruz is probably not the worst call, although he's getting up there in years.
Mm-hmm.
But again, looking at divisions where it's advantageous, and you've got the NL East. I can't remember. I always get them confused. The Yankees division, the American League. East. Yeah. A lot of these guys probably Stanton. If it weren't 11-1, I would think about it, but because of that, I'm just kind of out. Rhys Hoskins.
Oh no, Rhys Hoskins at 50-1. Sell me on it.
I mean, dude hits bombs.
I you want a couple guys in the mid-tier? What about Franmil Reyes at 35-1? Another guy that's going to be visiting Coors Field. I think that's a really good number, 35-1 on Franmil. And another guy, one of the best power hitters in all of baseball that gets completely neglected, bashed out, I think, at least 40 last year. Jorge Soler. I know the ballpark stink, I know the team stinks, but, he could pull a Pedro Serrano. He can do it by himself. All he needs is to bang some homers.
Yeah, I mean, there's so much volatility, and I don't think it's worth it to go with the guys up there at the top. I want at least 30-1 odds because, even Matt Olson, he was having some struggles last year, and, the main thing is he's a lefty, so there's some decent lefty pitchers in that division, if I remember correctly. So he kind of got taken out of a few games because the A's like to take advantage of matchups with Pinder, and there's one other guy that I can never remember his name. So that it's more worried about playing time and him getting pitch hit for later on in a game. So hence why not a big Matt Olson guy, but Chapman, he can hit outside of the home run contest where his dad's throwing just straight up heat and curveballs.
He had to get him one last time.
I'm trying to look at some long shot guys. Betts at 100-1. I know that he's not the biggest home run guy, but he can go on a little bit of heater. He's out of Boston, which I know is a very good park for hitting, but it's not that great of a park for home runs. Tatis at 100-1. Am I looking at the right thing? Is he really 100-1 for? Yeah, he's 100-1 for home runs. I'm not going to be surprised if he ends up leading the league in home runs. The dude just mashes. I think there's a lot more value down near the bottom.
Gary Sanchez at 66-1 is another one's kind of interesting. He's got a ton of power as well.
I think the worst bet on the board is Chris Davis, the Baltimore one at 125-1.
We just talked about the possibility of him hitting 17 homers. And sort of.
Unless Corona gave him superpowers.
If I'm not mistaken, wasn't he crushing spring training? Wasn't there a spring? He was doing something where he's hitting a bunch of homers. Did I imagine this?
I don't even know. But I don't know. He got that big contract. Maybe he's looking for maybe he just laid off the juice for a few years and all right, when I get when I'm ready for another contract, I'll start roiding up again.
I think I'm thinking of last year for some reason. The years, it's the years are just sort of meshing with me.
I just remember betting on him to actually get a hit when he was $6 over, or $1 over on Yahoo.
Well, he opened the season 0 for a whole bunch.
Yeah, 0 for 60. He had the longest hitless streak of all time, I think.
Yeah, you almost started to feel bad for the guy, despite the fact he's making an insane amount of money.
Yeah, no, he's on a $160 million contract. I don't feel bad for him at all.
Yeah, and also there was reports that he was refusing to work with the hitting coach, and he wasn't he wasn't even trying to work on his game. That was the reports, and the television commentary just buried him, and I think he was upset about this. But I don't know who Gary Thorne, or maybe it was Jim Palmer. I think it was Jim Palmer, and he was not pleased about this. I don't remember these reports. They're basically saying this guy's terrible, and he's not even trying to break out of it by working with the coaches. But yeah, he's got a 7-year, $161 million deal. And it doesn't expire until 2023. So, hey, man, good for Chris Davis.
We've seen it many times before. What about the other Chris Davis at 33 to 1? Obviously, he was injured. He had that wrist injury for most of last year, and that's kind of what we assumed was keeping him from doing too much. Sano, like 33 to 1. I don't think it's the worst bet in the world.
Another Corona guy, but we don't know how that's going to work out.
Yeah, I mean, again, look into things, and you can generally get a report if they're asymptomatic or not, which is a pretty good sign. Like, again, not a doctor. This is not medical advice.
Yeah.
But if you're asymptomatic, in my experience of research, it's much less likely to have any real lasting effects. And if anything, that probably more guarantees that they're less likely to get it throughout the course of the season.
Yeah, I mean, I hate playing the speculation game, much like you are as well.
I mean, I'm just going based off of odds. I mean, on average, most people, their antibodies last about 3 months, which will put you through pretty much the entire regular season at this point. Asymptomatic cases are about, 10 times more likely to not have lasting effects. I don't know. I know way too many doctors and way too many people have gotten it. So I've done my research into this far too much.
You have anything else as far as that's worth talking about here? I mean, I don't know. We haven't really dug in like who's going to win, the title and all that. But I mean, is that worth even talking? I've kept you long enough. There's nothing else, right, Grant?
I mean, not really. I'm just going to look at the team futures real quick to make the playoffs. Let's see if there's no.
Somebody goofy is going to make the playoffs just because like
it's not going to be the Orioles at 33 to 1, but like Vegas is kind of reflecting that. Like, I'm not really seeing any decent
Detroit 33 to 1.
Yeah, not going there. Like Vegas is kind of baked in the volatility and put a pretty large amount of juice on most things. I mean, I'm trying to look up the Mets are probably plus 135. Like, I honestly don't hate that.
Cardi loves that lineup. He was talking about that yesterday. How much?
Well, that lineup's great, and obviously their pitching's pretty good. So
they benefit greatly with the DH because Cespedes can't move. So
yeah, and I mean they've had they just had so many injuries over the year. Injuries are less likely to affect them in a 60-game season.
Trying to see if there's anything kind of sort of somewhat interesting that jumps out. Toronto plus 650. I don't completely hate that. I mean,
that's not a terrible line at all. The problem is that division's so tough where
correct.
Like they're the least likely. I mean, honestly, the Rangers at plus 650, they've got some decent bats. They've got some,
Klubat,
Lynn, and Minor was having a pretty decent season for most of the last year. I mean, the bullpen is probably still trash, but bullpens tend to regress a little bit more towards the mean. And Kluber's a guy that can go late into the games. Minor's a guy that can go late into the games, and Lynn's a guy that can go late into the games. So I honestly don't hate the Rangers at 6.5 to 1. I think that's a decent one. Mariners 12 to 1.
Yeah,
that's just me being a homer, but that seems like I can't even. I guess they did get rid of half their team. Forgot. I can't even remember.
That Toronto rotation, man. Hyun-Jin Ryu is interesting, but then Tanner Roark, the maker of shoes, Chase Anderson, Trent Thornton. I know we love the sticks, the young sticks there in Toronto. Vladdy and Biggio and Bichette and Gurriel, those guys. But that pitching rotation could be. And like you said, the division's rough, obviously, too. So outside of beating up Baltimore, and I assume they're going to play, the Marlins a series on the other side. But yeah, I'm looking
through the Mariners.
Yeah.
And it's I forgot how bad their lineup was towards the end of the season. Like they had Seager, they had Team Girth captain.
Oh, my boy. Yeah. Daniel Vogelbach.
And they had Haniger, and then it was just a hodgepodge of random guys like Tom Murphy who can just smash lefties for some reason.
Creative player Tom Murphy. Yeah. I need a proof of life. Are we sure Tom Murphy exists?
I'm not sure. I think it was just a glitch in the simulation.
Grant, give me your favorite take that we've talked about in this podcast.
I mean, Dylan Bundy at 150 to 1.
No, give me your second.
Frankie Montas to win the Cy Young at 41.
All right, my favorite one, of course, is going to be New Orleans. at 3-1.
I forgot we talked about basketball.
We did talk basketball. That did happen. This podcast went really long. If you guys stuck with us this long, we much appreciate it. Grant, give them like a code word to type in on YouTube, because we're on YouTube as well. This one is on YouTube. You can actually see it's worth firing up YouTube for another reason. You can see Grant's ridiculously awesome hair. Give him the side profile shot, Grant. It's really there it is. Nice.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm looking super sexy. Quarantine's almost over and gotta get back on the board.
What should they put in the comment section? Like, as like, hey, I made it to the end. Like something to say in the comment section on YouTube.
Well, just tell me if you swipe left on me or swipe right on me.
Oh, boy. Grant, it was a lot of fun. I thoroughly enjoyed it. Thanks for joining our pod. And the great thing about this is, like, it's like 3 months down the road, or we're not even going to know if we're right. And we could – and, nobody's going to remember who we picked 3 months ago. So if we're wrong –
If Dylan Bundy wins Cy Young, people will remember.
People will remember that. And they'll remember me, like, laughing at you, too, which is – put
a few dollars 10 spot on, and you got $1,500 coming your way in a few months.
Yeah, if you get
one of your $10 free bets from DK Sportsbook, if you're over here in Colorado, just throw it on Dylan Bundy. It's a free bet. You don't care if you lose, but if you win, just like if the Pelicans win, I've got the championship. I've got a whole lot of money coming my way.
That was Grant Neiffer from RotoGrinders.com. This was basketball. This was also baseball. I was Dean. It was the morning grind. Thanks for listening. We're out of here. Holler.
Hey, kids.